Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are all having a great day so far. So today I am presenting to you guys a relatively unique build which I feel like is not really done, and I feel like it's something that is quite interesting and I feel like people would be really interested in actually using. So today we're building an overwater sort of Maldives resort sort of place in Sulani, which came with island living, and I built this quite a long time ago. I built this in 2022, so it's been about 2 years now since I built this, and I already have the speed build of this on my channel actually, but I don't have any commentary on top of it or anything like that, nor has it really gotten any attention or whatnot. And I just felt like it has quite a lot of potential, especially with how the new packs are and the implementation of the for rent pack and stuff like that. So I feel like this lot can really be used in a lot of versatile ways, if that makes sense. And I really wanted to show you guys this build again because I feel like it really does have a lot of potential with a lot of gameplay aspects and stuff like that. So yeah, I do apologize that I am sort of showcasing an old build, but I just feel like a lot of people really have not seen this, and I feel like this is a great opportunity to make people see this build again. I feel really proud about how it turned out, and I really did spend quite a lot of time building it, so I just really wanted to show you guys again what it looks like and stuff like that. And yeah, and hopefully in the future I might possibly make another video going back and sort of adding some changes to it and whatnot and updating it, because keep in mind I built this with relatively minimal packs, especially since we don't have the packs that we have from 2023 and 2024. So there's actually quite a lot of stuff that is missing from this actual resort, which I feel can definitely be added, and I feel like it's a good idea to sort of go back to it and add some extra stuff, which I won't be doing in this video. But if you guys want to see a video like that where I go back and sort of add some new additions or make some changes in the future, let me know. We can create that in some sort of real-time sort of video rather than a speed build, because I just feel it will be a lot more interesting to go through the process of renovating a pre-existing build, if that makes sense. But yeah, this house or this entire resort pretty much has about 5 different separate houses from each other, which is honestly perfect when if you guys do have the for rent expansion pack, because I just feel it would be such a cool way to pretend some sort of resort. I just feel that it's such a cool gameplay idea, especially because it just fits so perfectly in this world of Sulani. And although I seen quite a lot of people build a lot of houses from the Maldives, I feel I've never seen people actually build an array of several different houses in just one lot in this sort of Maldives style. Maybe I just haven't been looking as much, but just based on when I started building this 2 years ago, I didn't really see a lot of people doing these sort of stuff, which I thought would be really cool. And although you don't really need the for rent pack to play in this lot, I just feel it would make it a lot more enjoyable, because you would see more Sims and stuff out and about on the same lot, rather than having to just be your own family and having to pretend that nobody else is there, if that makes sense. But yeah, most of these builds are relatively huge in my opinion. They're pretty good for a resort style house, if that makes sense. And we're actually starting off with the biggest one, which is the furthest out towards the sea, because I really wanted this one to be the biggest one as possible. And I kind of just made the obvious, especially with how many towers we have going on and how it's a second story. And we have some cheaper options in this build, which are I say cheaper, but that's kind of just the storyline. It's not really actually cheaper, but it looks a lot more cheaper in the sense that it's just one story, and it doesn't have a lot of features that the other big resort rooms sort of have, if that makes sense. And this one kind of just looks out into the ocean, which is honestly my favorite one, which is the main reason why I actually spent so much time building this one in comparison to all the other ones. And also please keep in mind, I actually built this, I mean, you guys already know that I built this 2 years ago, but I built this with not a lot of detail, if that makes sense, in the sense that the furniture might not be that great. So I really do apologize if you guys don't like the furniture in this build. And honestly, that just gives me another reason to go back and sort of add and make changes to this build, which I also think would be a very interesting video to see. And obviously, as we weren't able to use swimming pools on water lots back in the day, and I believe we didn't have the swimming pool mod, so I just made a little cutout and sort of pretended that cutout section was a designated swimming pool area for that specific house, if that makes sense. But yeah, I honestly don't really mind it, to be honest, especially since it's like relatively like low towards like the water level, so you don't really get that much of a difference, and I feel like it's pretty cool. I tried to add like a ladder here and there just to make it look a bit more realistic, but it just wasn't working out. But I still really like the way it looks in the end. Also, if you guys see like any part of this video where it goes a little bit dark or whatnot, I actually used a reshade filter, which is my own one, but from 2 years ago, and I just look at it and I'm just like, I don't know how I used to use that reshade like pack and think that it looked nice. I actually made it myself, all custom. I don't use anyone else's reshade presets, but I just really I don't know why I liked it for some reason back in the day, but it just looks so dark. And I actually been going back to my previous builds on my YouTube channel and actually picking and like selecting certain video thumbnails that I really don't like anymore, and I just end up like going back and changing the builds. I just feel like they look super dark, and the YouTube videos, I believe, already, once you upload them, already go dark or like have some sort of like dark filter. So having a dark reshade filter on it on top of that makes it look even worse, if that makes, in my opinion. I'll also provide some screenshots as well as like some sort of like tour or some like videos in the beginning or the end of the video, just so you guys can like see what it actually looks like with like my updated reshade filter, which I feel like looks so much better in my opinion. And the inspiration for most of these builds actually came from like individual homes that you would see in the Maldives alone. So like if you guys like, even if you guys like search up like any sort of like term to do with like the Maldives, like a Maldives home or whatnot, you would definitely see some builds that I have built on this lot that were inspired by those pictures that I saw on Pinterest or whatnot, which I feel like just like remains true to like how the actual like builds look in real life as well. And that was kind of just like the main objective anyway. I wanted it to look as close to like the real thing as much as possible, especially with like these like shingled roofs and stuff like that. I just really am happy with like how this build turned out in the end. I did honestly make some questionable choices, such as like this stairs on the outside of the of this house, which kind of just doesn't really make sense because it goes up to a balcony and it doesn't really actually lead to any rooms or whatnot. But I still kept it because I just feel like it was just like a unique feature, I guess. I don't know why, but apparently I just wanted to do that and I did it. This is one of the other homes that is relatively huge. Although it faces towards like the front of the actual resort and not towards the water, it is still one of the biggest houses on this lot, and I really do like the way it turned out because it just really looks really nice. It really does resemble a typical Maldives villa in my opinion. And if you guys see like these black walls that sort of like extend outwards towards from like the resort houses or whatnot, those places are supposed to be like some sort of like metal sort of like dividers or some sort, which kind of just like act as like either support or some sort of like shower unit area for that like location of the home. I don't know why they did that, but they have that in like the real home, so I just wanted to replicate that in the game as well. And you would see I used some sort of like tricks here and there and like place some like fake walls here and there just to make some of like the actual like summery sort of like resort style doors to like actually like fit and work with this build, because obviously we are working in like such a tight space. I did want to like make it look and make sense and resemble a Maldives home as much as possible. And I placed this small little swimming pool here, which I feel like doesn't really make sense, especially when I don't know what I was thinking when I was building that, but I just feel like it's a little swimming pool that is pretty much like at the front of the resort, which is like kind of like on the sandy bit of the... Moving on to the third house, we're actually moving to the middle of the actual like resort sort of like area, and I really do like the way the curved bridge sort of like style looks. I just feel like it's such a unique shape and it looks really cool instead of making something that looks like plain and rectangular. And if you guys are wondering, I have actually utilized some debug objects to make this build work. So such as like the flooring that you see for the bridge is actually from debug, because your sim is not supposed to be able to like interact with that object, if that makes sense. And a lot of objects from debug, the sims can literally just like walk through it, which is the main reason why they put it into debug, was it's not really intended for like actual gameplay use, if that makes sense. So yeah, just like adding a bunch of stuff to this home that is kind of like in the center of this resort. And I feel like this home is relatively like simple and it doesn't really look that special, so I kind of just like left it in the middle, and it doesn't really look that special either, so I'm assuming that's probably like a relatively cheap one in my opinion. And this is actually surprisingly another one of the homes that is actually relatively huge. And if you haven't noticed so far, like I've actually been trying to create a lot of like these like round shapes and stuff, and I've been using the fence tool, and because we didn't have the curved walls or whatnot, so I actually had to utilize this like fence, these curved fence flooring pieces, which kind of looked unique and cool. But I was just trying to make it look as interesting as possible, because I feel like a lot of modern builds and architecture do incorporate a lot of curves and stuff, so I did want to like try to like introduce curves into this build in some way, shape or form, or even if it wasn't curves, just like something that looked interesting. So you could see me here, I'm just sort of like trying to create like this like triangular swimming pool, and I don't even remember if I keep it or not, but yeah, just like trying to make every single build look a bit more like distinctive from each other, which is like the main goal and purpose for this entire build anyway, just to like make something that looks unique and interesting, which I feel like I was able to execute properly well in my opinion, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. But I just feel like there's a few things that I feel like could have definitely been improved, especially like the furnishing and stuff like that, as we'll see later on in the video. But overall, I did actually keep a lot of like me creating the like roofing pieces or whatnot, and like placing everything, because I just feel like the speed build is actually relatively quick, which is something that I don't really do anymore. I kind of like pay attention to how quick my videos are going now, because I don't want people to like watch and get headaches or miss something out because I'm going too quickly, if that makes sense. And I just feel like watching a speed build that is really quick just like is not really as interesting as someone who does like speed builds who are just like a little bit more slower and like cut a few less interesting things out, if that makes sense. But yeah, I'm just utilizing a lot of like open floor plan sort of like styled windows and doors, which like face out towards the scenery and like the water, which I feel like looked so nice. And especially utilizing those Get Famous windows, which I feel like I've never been able to use ever anywhere, and I still can't, to be honest, because they just look very like modern and like tropical and like resorty sort of, and you can't really use that in like a real like house, if that makes sense. So yeah, I was able to like utilize some unique windows and objects into this build, which I feel like was really fun to build. And honestly, despite this build being so huge, and I remember it taking such a long time creating, but I just really didn't mind it because I was really enjoying the process of it, because it wasn't like a typical like huge modern mansion. It was kind of just like a unique build that I really don't get to build often. So whenever I get an opportunity to build something unique, I just feel like it's like really fun and enjoyable in my opinion. But yeah, I'm just like, we're pretty much like finished with like all of the entire like houses in my opinion. Like as you guys can see, like we have two pretty much like single story ones, and we have 3 houses that are like 2 stories, which I really do like. I'm really happy with like how the selection and like the choices I went with as I was building this. And I was actually confused on like whether I like the roofing color to be like this like nice brown color, or if I want it to be like an open gray color. I mean, you guys would obviously know which one I picked by the time I pretty much like uploaded this, because I'll probably like put the best looking one as like the thumbnail. But honestly, I really do like the way both colors look, because I just like the way the brown matches like the floor like decking sort of like with the roofing. I really do like the way the decking color matches the roof color when it's brown, but when the roofing is like this sort of like gray color, it doesn't really match anything besides the actual like furniture pieces. But yeah, you guys can let me know in the comment section below what you guys think looks a lot better, and I'd really love to know your opinion, because I just feel like you guys are obviously like the ones who would be probably interested in sort of like downloading this or whatnot, and especially because like you guys are like the people who are interested in downloading this sort of content, it would be great to like get some sort of like input on like what kind of things you guys like to see in my builds. But yeah, we're pretty much like going around and adding some like extra details and decorations here and there. I'm actually surprised I didn't actually include any coral reef, which I don't know why I haven't utilized any coral reef from Island Living, but I will probably go back and add some here and there before I re-upload this to the gallery. That won't be like an entire renovation. I'll just add a few things or change some things up before adding this to the gallery, because I feel like a new version wouldn't really like be an issue to anyone in my opinion. And I'm also adding these fake column sort of like decking sort of things to all the sides of the entire home. And I also utilized a lot of mods when building this. So I used the Better Build by mod as well as like the tool mod, which doesn't affect your gameplay at all. You guys don't really need to have it in your game at all if you guys do not want to use it, but I just utilize it because it just really helps me with like creating a build. And I just feel like I use tool mods in certain places where I know players will definitely not like mess about with. So for example, as you guys saw with like those like decking beam thingies, I doubt any player is gonna like go and like remove those or like move them about. So I don't really like worry about like if someone has the tool mod or not, because like they wouldn't be able to replace it if they don't have the tool mod, if that makes sense, because you'd need to lower it down. and you can't lower it down more than like pressing the 0 key, if that makes sense. So yeah, I was just making sure that I used the tool mod in like the right places, just so like the decking sort of like supports weren't like poking out from like either sides of like the flooring. And I obviously made sure like every part of this entire build does actually work and is 100% functioning, as you guys probably saw from the beginning of the video. But yeah, moving on to the furniture, I've kind of like focused on creating some like very minimalistic and simple looking decor pieces throughout like the entire build, primarily because I feel like in the Maldives you don't really get a lot of like detailed and like colored stuff anyway. You get kind of like these like modern monochrome looking furniture pieces. I'm not even 100% sure because I've never been there, but just like based on like what I think would probably be there, because they're kind of like a luxury resort, and a lot of luxury resorts nowadays do incorporate a lot of like modern furniture pieces and like details and interiors. So I was just like kind of like basing it off of that, and plus I built this 2 years ago, so like, you know, my style has probably changed, and I would have added a few more details and stuff here and there if I were to build this today. But yeah, just like adding some like plain and nice simple furnishings that I really do like. I honestly do like the way it looks. I just feel like I do think some people might think that it's a bit more simple and they might not like it because of how minimalistic and simple it looks, whereas like that's kind of just like the way that I really like my builds and like my colors in my builds, if that makes sense. And I do actually go back and like change some of the colors here and there for certain furniture objects, such as like the seating that I use from Dream Home Decorator to be like this like nice dark oak that like supports the white cushion, if that makes sense. And I really do like the way that looks, mainly because it does work well with like the roofing as well as like the decking. I just feel like it really matches well with like all the colors that I have utilized throughout this entire build. And we do also have quite a lot of like these octagonal or pentagonal rooms that I really do like utilizing in these like resort style houses, even though I don't really feel like you can fit a lot of details or like a lot of furniture pieces in them. I still really like using them because I just feel like it makes the architecture for the exterior of it make it look a bit more distinctive, which is the reason why I have actually utilized it quite a lot in this build. And as I mentioned before, I was trying to like really go with like a lot of unique shapes here and there just to make it look a bit more interesting than it really is. And we do have relatively small houses, despite them looking relatively huge on the exterior. I just feel like the interiors were like kind of like small to work with and quite tricky to like get everything to work with. But I was obviously thinking of like the average like player and like thinking about what they would actually use this build for. So if you guys do want to use this as like some sort of like house rather than a resort, you guys can 100% go ahead and do that, because I did make sure to incorporate everything needed so that you can live in like however like you wanted to in these entire resort style houses, if that makes sense. And we do have a lot of like black and white themes, primarily because that was like my favorite color and like my favorite taste that I was like building with, and I still really like building with those sort of like styles and like modern interior details, but I just kind of like add a bit more color now, if that makes sense. So I really do like creating a lot of these like accent colors here and there, but I haven't really like done that in like my old build, and especially since it's like 2 years ago, I really haven't like thought about like creating a lot of like details and stuff like that in each of like the rooms. So if you guys want to see some sort of like renovated like sort of like build for this entire lot, let me know in the comments below, and I'll definitely consider doing something like that, because I just feel like it will be really fun to go back and like add some extra details and stuff here and there with like the new packs and like the new kits or whatnot, especially with like the book nook kit and stuff like that, because I feel like that is one of my favorite kits when it comes to creating these like nice resort style or like modern houses, if that makes sense. Most of the rooms relatively look the same, incorporating this like canopy bed, which I really do like. And as I mentioned before, like most of these builds are really thin, which is a bit disappointing, because I just feel like I honestly would have taken the opportunity to work on an even bigger lot if I had the chance, but I believe this is the biggest lot. Just had to work with what I had, and I was just like adding all the necessary stuff and like hoping that everything worked well. And I did obviously like play test it as much as possible, and I do know that everything works, so there's no problem with that. But yeah, if you guys don't really like any of the furniture or whatnot, I believe you guys can just like go and like change everything about like however you guys want to change it. And I did really keep to like a minimalistic style, because I just wanted to keep it very like simple and like monochrome, because that's just like, I feel like that is like makes sense for like a resort. I feel like you wouldn't really have a lot of like character or like whatnot in like these builds, so I just kept it really simple. And if you guys want to, you guys can definitely go back and like change it and like add some extra stuff here and there. But yeah, most of the towers and stuff that I utilize in most of these like 2-story builds, I instead just like turn them into bathrooms, because I just couldn't think of anything else to like really add into them. I believe like maybe like some sort of like desk, or if there was like some sort of like round bed, I feel like that would be really interesting, but unfortunately we don't have something like that. Or if we had spiral staircases, that would have been very helpful, especially in this particular build, because there's just so many locations in this build where there's like these curves or diagonal pieces, or like these like very narrow pieces where I have to use a lot of these like rectangular curved square stairs, and they just don't really fit so well. So if we had like some sort of like spiral staircase, it would honestly make this build so much easier, and I feel like we would have so much more space to work with. Despite it being stairs, I just feel like it really would have helped us to like create and add a lot more details and stuff here and there. But yeah, I just tried to make each room, and especially the bathrooms, look as interesting as possible, trying to place like these like bath tubs in like these like very iconic and like sort of like out in the open sort of locations where you know people aren't going to see you, but it's like very revealing because it's like in front of these like windows, or like these like open shutter window sort of situations, which I really do like the way they look. And I feel like it's relatively realistic, because I feel like a lot of these like fancy and like luxurious homes do actually incorporate stuff like that. And we're moving on to the actual like exterior now, and we're pretty much like done with the entire build. Just going around and adding some extra like plants and foliage, as well as like some spray paint here and there, just to like make it look a bit more like lived in and stuff. I'll probably remove some of the plants in the front area of like the actual like lot, because I just feel like it was a bit too much in my opinion. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this entire speed build. Let me know what you guys think by leaving a like and subscribing, and I would really love to know what your thoughts are on this build in the comment section below. And I also have a bunch more videos on the channel that is similar to this, especially like these like huge modern family homes, which I highly recommend that you guys should check out. And I'll see you guys in my next video.